In 2023, the band Jady released their sophomore album entitled Napalm, which expanded upon and continued the conceptual world building which began with the Haze, as well as presenting a fresh and matured sound in their music. In this video, I'll walk through and review the album in its entirety. The album begins with the title track, Napalm, which presents the tone and theme for this album. As the band begins to gain some success and recognition, they find that many external factors seek to pull them in various directions, not all of which are good. Some offer the rewards of fame and success, but come at a price which the artists behind Jady are unwilling to pay. The song begins with these lines. "This is when you see your true colors. Welcome to the trial by fire." And continues, "This is when the bodies start to drop dead. Your conviction went to lay upon its deathbed. Would you kill if it meant that your life mattered?" That final question is an interesting and an important one, not just when it comes to creating music, but to much of life in general. We can quite often find within humans this desire to have left a mark on the world. And whether or not that desire is innate or not, it certainly is a strong one. As a result, it is easy to grasp at the first path which presents itself as that which will give your life purpose. But if you do not stay true to your convictions, if you in fact kill your conscience, then you'll find that what you have achieved is rather meaningless, and your life rather empty. The chorus of Napalm speaks to this. "If only for tonight I saw the reason why I'm supposed to live this life. I hope I'm not a waste watching darkness take this place. So if you are the fire, then cover me in napalm." In the midst of this world pulling on Jady, attempting to steer him in a certain direction towards a certain false purpose, Jady once again calls out to God, asking him to guide him towards the correct path and show him the way. We see this in the bridge of the song, which goes as follows. "A pressure more than I can bear. The world is so dark out there. So could you be my sky of flares and cover me in napalm? A spark is everything I need in the fog and looming trees, anything to make the darkness bleed." Jady is still stuck in the world of the Haze. The next song, Wallow, launches right back into the narrative of the lore. Since this album came out, the song has been, and remains, my favorite on the record. As we saw at the end of the Haze, Jady has realized that he does not belong in this world anymore, and is trying to find a way out. However, in this song, we can see that he is slipping back into complacency. Again, the Haze is all that he remembers, and he fears stepping away from the routine and the familiar, because even the darkness is comforting to him after so many years without the light. The first pre-chorus betrays this sentiment. "If the writing on the wall says I should leave, but there's something in the dark that gives me peace, now I don't want to go." And having slipped once more back into the darkness of the Haze, he wants to cry out again for help, but worries that he may have fallen back too far this time. As we see in the chorus, "Cry for help, but I don't know how. Want to hear your voice, but don't make a sound." And continues, "I should hate it, but I love it when I wallow in the darkness." As I mentioned, he is used to this state, to this world. It is all that he can remember. And while it is clear that he knows there is something better towards which he should strive, there's a sense in which it is not clear that he understands what that better thing is. The second verse illustrates this perfectly. "Nostalgia, in despair I take it like a drug. I promised for the night, but I've been living here for months." Everything around him is telling him to stay where he is, because it is comfortable, and he slowly begins to slip into a shadow of his former self, as we see in the next song. It is in the third track of this album that we are at last introduced to the Ghostman, a figure who will play a central role in the lore of their music. As we saw in Wallow, Jady is beginning to slip into a shadow of his former self, and Ghostman continues that. "Oh no, where do I go when I don't recognize myself? Where'd my life go? I feel myself fading like the Ghostman." So, who is this Ghostman? As the song progresses, it becomes clear that this idea of a Ghostman is a twofold concept. In one sense, it points to a singular figure, the creator and controller of this world, Ted Silver. In another sense, it is representative of this shift into complacency that we see Jady going through. Those who are consumed and overpowered by this world of darkness slowly become ghosts of themselves, not truly living, just existing. As we see, the first verse tells us, "I've seen a lot of people going through a process of change, ignoring everything around them, acting like they're okay, But don't they notice it? I'm watching all their bodies decay. As those trapped in this world choose to ignore the darkness around them, they become Ghostmen themselves. And Jady fears that he will not be able to avoid this fate. The verse continues, "And you think I could avoid it because I've been there before, promised counterfeit solutions, it don't work anymore. It's just a matter of time before we end up a ghost in the night." It seems likely that in order to fully escape the haze, it is necessary to fully overcome the Ghostman. It is not enough to simply not become him. One must resist becoming him so completely that the draw will no longer pull on one's sleeve and distract from the real purpose at hand, which is to escape this false reality. While it is pretty clear that everything in this album takes place in the context of the lore, and vice versa, this next song, Skinwalker, shifts away from the explicit discussion of the lore. As the duo has mentioned in the past, this song is very much an exploration of how it feels to conform to what the society around you wants you to be, especially when it comes at the cost of what you really believe in, or what is really the right way to go. The first verse opens the song with these lines: "I've got identity issues ever since I could walk. The younger brother in me acting older to prove to you that I'm not just some little kid. I could be anything that you want and forget about being me. All these days being under the sun, I couldn't tell you what I'm meant to be." Again, as we touched upon in the opening track, there's a clear theme at play here of the struggle to find one's identity and purpose in life. And the issue here is as follows. Whenever he attempts to explore a purpose of or find identity in something other than what society and the things of this world want him to look at, he is made to feel like a scary creature and is ostracized. This is all demonstrated quite clearly in the entirety of the second verse. "Everybody boarding up the circle, so I can't see in. We're scared of being seen with a creature like him. I shouldn't care this much, but at the end of the day, I'm a people-pleasing pessimist. So what can I say?" He ends the song by expressing a firm wish that he can finally work up the courage to pursue what is actually true, here and now, rather than putting it off into the future. The fifth track on this album is called Frostbite, and it is another one of my favorites from this collection, and one which, sadly, does not seem to get too much recognition. It is a beautiful song, a love song, expressing the desire he has to adequately and properly care for the one he loves. In the first verse, he describes how they're waiting to see what I'm made of. Can I provide to keep you warm before we freeze on the side of the road? He certainly feels an enormous pressure to ensure that the one he loves is properly taken care of, and a fear of his own inadequacies, especially faced with a threatening or dire situation, such as freezing on the side of the road. Yes, there could be a sense in which the imagery is just that, a metaphor for something which he is unable to fully put into words specifically. But it, on the other hand, might be a very real situation which he has thought about and worried about. And the main fear with which the song is concerned is laid out in the chorus, and goes as follows. "I don't want to drag you through the cold if I'm only going to let you down. Don't want to be the reason that we're both laying out on the freezing ground. I don't want to put you through the most if I'm only going to let you down." He's not just worried that he will be unable to fulfill all her needs or take care of her in a time of crisis. He also fears that it will be through his own doing that she ends up there. That after leading her down a path which he believes to be the right one, he'll find himself mistaken, and she'll be hurt as a result. At the same time, in the second verse, he expresses a belief that if he stays true to what he knows to be the right way to go, and she sticks with him, and they get through it together, there will be a better outcome as a result. The second verse lays that out in this way. "If we survive the freezing cold, I'll build us a house and we'll call it a home. But it's starting to snow. Are you ready to go? Are you listening?" He may be plagued by doubt, but he's even more afraid of inaction. The next track, Dead Flowers, walks us through Jady's struggle with writer's block. As a whole, the song is about the pressure he feels now that his creativity is in the public eye, and he feels more demands to create more music, whether or not those demands are made implicitly or explicitly. Thus, the flowers can be taken to symbolize the songs he writes, as we see in verse 1. "Here comes the moment I've been worried about. They want flowers, but there's nothing coming out of the ground. I thought I'd make it through the drought with my garden underground, but I let you down." And, as he expresses next in the pre-chorus, "All I've got are dying petals laying withered on the floor," signifying that as he feels pressured to release more music as quickly as possible, he feels tempted to take these dead flowers out of the basement and bring them up, showing them off as his proud creations. He then tries to find a justification for such a move in the chorus, saying, "So tell me I'm doing this right, only living for what they like. But I got dead flowers up in my basement." Deep down, he knows that these dead flowers are not worthy to be shown off as his creations. But he also betrays a wish that someone would just tell him that they are. This is the right way to go. Ultimately, this internal struggle is not resolved at the end of this song, creating a sort of narrative arc which lasts from track 6 to 10. Also, in the second half of the song, we get this bridge, which is significant in its own right. "My flowers keep on running on empty. If I'm honest, it's driving me crazy. Oh no, I should listen to my own words. Look at the sun and let my flowers grow again. These flowers can't grow in the basement." From this we can see that it is inspiration which keeps these flowers alive, but also in a sense it is that which keeps Jady alive. And to go back to the lore for a moment, that which keeps him from slipping into a Ghostman. Sitting where it does on the album, and given the fact that the end of track 6 flows very smoothly into the beginning of track 7, it is reasonable to assume that this next song, Stunner, follows this narrative of an internal struggle that we see begin in Dead Flowers. The song opens with him explaining, "I want to make up my mind, but I'm scared to mess it up, so I'm gonna stay inside on anesthesia. Should I fight or flight or nothing else at all? I don't want to decide." Trapped by indecision, Jady feels paralyzed in a way which is very similar to what we saw at the beginning of the album, both in track 1, Napalm, and track 2, Wallow. The first verse expands upon this even further. "I'm afraid I'll color inside the lines when I'm aware there's so much more outside. I just want to feel enough, but I feel so paralyzed." Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, and as we will continue to see throughout this body of work, there's this main theme at play. As Jady, both as individuals and a band, begin to gain some success and fame, they find themselves split by the different decisions which they have to make. On the one hand, they are presented with a quick path to fame and success, but that would require the sacrifice of their values and the presentation of their dead flowers. On the other hand is a harder and more daunting road, but one which allows the duo to stay true to what they believe. The second verse sums up this sentiment very neatly. "About time that I put my mind to rest. I'm stunned from all this pressure in my head. Every step I take, I want to take it back, and everything you need is something I might lack. And pride will come before every fall. So wouldn't it be better if I did nothing at all?" The narrative continues with track 8, as the internal conflict appears to reach a resolution. In the song's intro, Jady writes, "All the people in the room don't know my name. Kind of wish I wasn't invisible today. Should I sell my soul for a price I wouldn't pay?" Reiterating the question with which he's been struggling throughout this album. But then the intro flows into the first verse, which I will lay out here in its entirety, as it deserves a close look. "So, can I ask how you got your stripes? I will admit they're looking pretty nice, but I can see a couple faded lines. Selling out before I sell out every single night. I got my foot on the gas at a steady pace, no strings attached, on the ride to fame. It'll be a drive, people passing by, but the sun shines on my face." Based off of the song as a whole, and the imagery with which it was accompanied when it was released as a single, it seems clear that the stripes to which he refers are the military stripes, which signify a soldier's rank, which, as a piece of imagery, can directly correlate to rankings within the music industry, whether it be chart rankings or what have you. The more stripes you have, the higher your rank, and more stripes are added as you progress forward. As Jady looks at others around him who are ranked higher, he confesses himself to be somewhat jealous of where they are sitting. But at the same time, he spies those faded lines, which, just like the dead flowers we saw earlier, betray a sense of inauthenticity. Seeing this, Jady then resolves to stick with what he believes in and what he can be proud of, even if it means his career will progress more slowly. He would rather that the stripes he does get bear some kind of authentic meaning for him. In fact, he becomes so resolved in this goal that he asks the listener to hold him accountable to it. In the second verse, "I can't lie. Sometimes I want the love and the numbers worldwide. So if you catch me turn into a sellout, promise that you'll say your last goodbye. Thus we see that Jady has picked the road to follow and is resolved in this pursuit. While there still may be fears or doubts as to how to achieve these goals, he's no longer questioning if they are the right goals to be aiming at. In another one of my favorite songs from Napalm, track 9 jumps back into the world of the Haze. Having seen what he'll become if he stays trapped behind the rose-colored lenses, full of apathy, namely, that he will turn into a Ghostman, Jady appears to have at last taken them off and shattered them for good. Verse 1 opens the song with these lines. Look around. Where is all the saturation? Reality is looking bleak. Now that he is no longer blinded by the red color view, the harsh gray reality which he has been avoiding for so long hits him hard. Immediately he is tempted to just put the glasses back on, to return again to a nicer reality. He looks around at the others trapped as he just was, and the verse continues. Bodies drag, hypnotized behind the lenses where shattered glass paved the street. I can see the damage of their disposition. It shouldn't be attracting me. Now, looking as he can from a more externalized perspective, he sees just how damaging the complacency really was, and he tells himself to be repulsed by it. Those still trapped behind these lenses are clearly sick. Nevertheless, Jady finds it hard to fully forget how comfortable it was to be calmed by their hazy reality. As we see in the chorus, if everyone is sick, am I sick in the head for craving every toxin that's killing them dead? I'm crawling out the pit just to fall back again. Why am I feeling envious? He is in a sense jealous of their ability to remain happy and content, trapped in a dream world, not driven by a desire to live in and by what is actually true. And then, in the second verse, he forces himself to remember the truth about the situation. Look away. You're happy now, but won't be later. It's just a twisted fantasy. Take your pick. Lose the comfort, spark the fire, or join the dance down in their grave. He has his options laid out before him now. He can either throw off the lies of this world completely, sparking the fire needed to make the darkness bleed, and living by the light of reality, pursuing what should actually be pursued. Or he can return to those comfortable lies, joining the others in their pit. While throughout the album we see a resolve in him to stick to what is actually true, by the end of Napalm, it is not fully clear if he did actually succeed in that pursuit. That comes later. Track 10, Synthetic, is something of an ironic song. It summarizes the ideas that are being pushed at the duo as the music industry tries to direct their path. But the song itself is musically stylized to sound like and poke fun at a typical mainstream song, especially with that overly auto-tuned bit in the second half. Verse 1 describes the following. They tell me, move to the city, where your dreams come true. We got a line of people who could make it happen for you. Got the big crowds, money, and the interviews. We got it all. You just gotta break a promise, or two. This makes it clear just how strong the temptation around Jady must be. That those around him are telling him, if you just do a few things, just sell out a little bit, you'll be guaranteed popularity, fame, and riches. Sure, you may lose your mind in the process, but it'll be all worth it in the end. The appeal of such rewards makes Jady take a second look at those who have done it and made it big in the music industry. As the chorus outlines, I'm so synthetic, I'm watching everything that you do, so apathetic to the way I want to be like you, with the plastic-wrapped chorus, manufactured and new. He can see that those plastic songs, which shine on the factory lines, do have a track record of success, and would likely bring in more fans and expose his music to more people. Wouldn't that be a good thing? But then he remembers the cost, as we see in the second verse. We want your work and dedication for your wildest dreams, so we can make a couple bands when we sell it for cheap. Go trade that quality for quantity, because if we keep it real, nobody cares if it's true to you, but not paying bills. The last clause of those lines is a clear lie, but a convincing one nonetheless. But the main point which stealthily underlies what Jady is being told is this. They do not actually care about the music or the artist. They just want a product that they can sell and effectively market to the most number of people. The duo sees through this, and the song concludes with this sentiment. I'm sick and tired of turning into someone I don't like. Even if I do what I love and I don't make a dime, I think I'm good. This song, Ditty, is another love song, but one which is almost the flip side of Frostbite. Here, Jady is not expressing concern about taking care of or providing for the one he loves, but is acknowledging the loyal and unwavering support which he has been receiving. While he may be struggling financially or in a small, relatively unknown band, the fact and knowledge that she will always be by his side is enough. He explains this in verse 2 with these lines: "I'm in a band nobody's ever heard, playing shows all the way to the coast. So if all I get is a smile when you hear this song, then honey, that's all I need. And I'll go on and on and on through the reasons you're way too good for me." Again, as we've been seeing throughout this album, there's a desire to recenter his motivations and find a purpose for doing what he does. And here, the idea of creating a song which the one he loves can enjoy is simply purpose enough. And then, if we look at the refrain and the third verse of the song, we see the following lines: "And you tell me you don't care, you're sticking around. And somehow you still believe in me, and you don't care if I end up broke on the street. So I'ma love you till the end, and I know it's stupid, but I mean every word I said." Here we can see him expressing his feelings honestly, without trying to place them inside any kind of flowery language. He acknowledges that such bluntness may come across as stupid, or be so straightforward as to be insincere. But it is still true to what he believes. But, even more than just being a love song, this is clearly a thank you letter. The second to last song, track 12, entitled Secondhand Smoke, essentially continues the narrative from Envious, wrapping up the lore. There we saw Jady making the final push to fully firm up his resolve to discard the rose-colored lenses and leave the haze for good. Here we see his mind is fully made up, and he appears to be calling upon God for help as he fights his way out. The song opens with these lines from the first verse: "Sky full of embers land on my sleeve. I still remember when I said I'd never leave. Cold like December, comfortably dead. Burn everything evil so I don't go back again." As we saw right at the beginning with the song which introduced us to this world, the haze, it is a cold, dark place. Cold like December. Here, those trapped are stuck in the comfort of their own inaction. Comfortably dead. Dead perhaps only in a metaphorical sense, but dead nonetheless, because they are not endeavoring to truly live. Jady thinks back on a time when he was not sure if he would bring himself to leave this awful place. But now, as he explains in verse 2, there's no doubt in his mind that he must escape this evil world. "I'ma be the one who's gonna take this smoke and fly. No, I'm never going back. This forest stays to die." The forest in question here is clearly the inverted forest, which we saw explained and explored in their first album, a key location in their lore. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, we see him asking for God's aid in his quest out of this evil place, with these lines: "Won't you set my soul on fire? Can you see me now? I need this change of scenery, 'cause the cold has got me down." And now, at last, we arrive at the final song on this album. Track 13 is the longest song on this album, and it is entitled Backbone. It took me some time to figure out who exactly Jady is addressing in this song. Who is the backbone? But, given some of the lyrics we see throughout it, and its placement on the album just after Secondhand Smoke, my best guess is that the backbone here is God. The song opens with these lines: "I've been told I'm spineless, and I can't lie, I couldn't agree more, when I'm on my own without you keeping me alive. I've been told I'm selfish, and you know it's true. I gave all I had and all I was for a dream, but it don't compare to you." Jady is acknowledging the need he has for God, having realized that he could not have begun to escape the haze and seek the light without God's help. He can also look back now and see how fully empty the lies and promises of that dark place were compared to the reality and beauty of the truth. "But you're my backbone. Without you, I'm a stone-cold liar." There's also a sense in which, even as Jady struggled with indecision and was tempted to follow the empty promises of the world, particularly with regard to his music career, there was always something which guided him towards an understanding of how foolish that would be. He alludes to this in the second verse. "I was losing myself, couldn't stand up straight. I know it's real when you rip my spine clean out of my back when I try to go make a name." And then closes out the song and the album with the reminder, "I couldn't live this life without you holding me." Thus, Jady's Napalm comes to an end. Overall, it is an excellent album, with only one or two songs which dip down a bit in quality. It is lyrically and thematically intriguing, with wonderfully produced and written music. As I mentioned at the start, there is a clear theme throughout this album of the importance of staying true not just to what you believe, but rooting that belief and really the purpose and goals of your life in something greater and more meaningful than just short-term, comfortable, and self-aggrandizing pleasures. Another aspect of the album which I really enjoy, but which isn't an element in most albums, is the smooth, seamless transitions from one song to the next. The only exception to this is found at the end of Wallow, which only transitions smoothly into Ghostman. If it is followed by any other song, the transition is very jarring. But the other songs in the album, even when they did flow very smoothly and immediately into the song which followed them, didn't struggle with that issue. If you've not yet listened to this body of work, I hope this video will encourage you to. With that being said, I would like to thank you for watching and sticking it through this long video, all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and be sure to leave any thoughts or comments you may have below. And don't forget to subscribe for more music, commentary, and reviews.